He has written, recorded, and performed some of our favorite songs, both as a solo artist with a chart-topping #1 song and as lead vocalist for two very successful bands. One of my favorites, The Babies, and supergroup Bad English. He has a new album out, and his tour starts here in South Florida this weekend. Let's say hi to John Waite.
Hey, Jodi, how are you?
I am good, John. How are you? It is a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, well, God bless you. Thank you. It's nice to talk to you. I'm here in California.
I was going to ask where you were.
Yeah, no, it's like Little England. It's like there's so many English people live here.
Yeah.
It's almost like being back home, really.
Okay.
You know?
So, I wanted to ask because the last 20 months since this pandemic started has been crazy. It hit the music industry particularly hard. No one was able to tour. There were no live concerts. Where did you spend lockdown, and what did you pass the time doing?
Well, oddly enough, the last gig we played was in Florida, and then I took a flight to New York City, spent 10 days there, got on a train, and spent 3 days coming back to California. Just for the experience, I just wanted to be on a train for 3 days. But when I got back to Santa Monica, it was dead. There was nobody on the streets. And from that point on, it's a blur. I mean, I just know I was in lockdown, and I thought I was going to write a whole bunch of music, and I didn't. I think I needed an audience and someone to sing to, with an idea of playing live, and there seemed to be no light at the end of the tunnel. So I stopped writing, and I went back to painting. I went to art school for 4 years and got a diploma in fine art. And, my first love really was kind of like drawing alongside music. So I did a lot of that. I painted, and I kept a low profile. And about 3 months ago, we started playing live again, and almost out of the blue, I started writing like a lot. I had all these songs stockpiled in my head, and all last week I was in the studio here cutting a record, and I'm in there today. So the middle bit, as we like to call it, was a blur. It's just a blur. It was like somebody erased a chapter of my life, really.
I think we all feel that way, and it was so much like Groundhog Day, where each day became the same, and we started to lose track of what day of the week it was.
That's exactly how I called it. It was like get out of bed, coffee up, get all sorts of energy going. You want to do something, and then nothing happens. And it was like, my God, how we came through that, I just don't know, because it wasn't good,
No, it wasn't good for anyone, and everyone we talk to pretty much shares those same sentiments. So you say you got back on the road, or started performing live rather, a couple of months ago.
Yeah, we got an offer to do a private gig for this very wealthy guy who had a huge estate in Gilroy, and we piled in the van and went up there and played, and it was great. And it was weird, when I came off stage, every muscle in my body was aching. It was like I know I put a lot into it, and physically you're sort of like pulled around by the music. But I came off stage, and it was like, what was that? I thought it would be like riding a bike, and a lot of it was. But it was foreign territory again. It took a couple of dates to really pick up the momentum that we'd had, because we were working a lot, But it only took like 2 or 3 dates, and then it all came back.
Then it all came back.
And it became really edgy, kind of like really full-blown energy, reaching for insane notes, and the band playing into each other. Instead of just like, the band looking at each other like, is this a G or an F sharp? You know, you know. And by the time of the third show, it was definitely a G. You know, it was
Right.
good.
So you're going to be ready when you hit the stage this weekend in Fort Lauderdale. We know you're playing. The venue is called the Parker for people that have lived in South Florida a long time, formerly the Parker Playhouse. But you're saying
Yeah.
you're ready. You've got in those practice shows behind you. You're ready
Well,
to rock the
yeah.
score.
We've been doing we've been out with Neil and Paddy for quite a few shows this
Pat
month or
Benatar,
last
yeah.
month. Yeah. So it's like a well-oiled machine. You know, we're going out with them. And it's just great. I mean, it's a great show. I stay and watch their show, and it's always really engaging. You know, they really have this thing between them, and it's like watching a play. You know, and so I think the shows we're doing are kind of semi-unplugged. We come out with 2 guitars and a bass. I think we're going to leave the drums at home for the
Oh,
Florida
really?
shows. Yeah, it works. It's a nice thing. It's like if you play Missing You, it doesn't matter whether it's being played at like volume or if it's acoustic with volume. You know, there's very little difference. You know, we sort of play whatever comes into our heads. It's very impromptu and it's fun. The thing about the new album is
Yes.
it's an unplugged triple album.
Tell
Wooden
us about
Heart,
it. What's the name of it?
Wooden Heart, volumes 1, 2, 3, and it's a triple acoustic album. And it ranges through my career, and there's new songs, a couple of Dylan songs. It's a good album. I mean, well, I can't say it's good because it's me, but we're out there to promote that. It's already in its second printing, and it's very popular. We're doing very well with it. So
And
to
the
do,
song.
go on.
No, I was going to say the song you mentioned, Dylan. So I know that the new single, "Not Dark Yet," that is a Dylan cover, correct?
Yeah, it was. It was the most challenging Dylan song I could think of, you know, and we cut that in an afternoon, and then the rest of it just happened over the next 2 days, and we had it, you know. But I mean, like I'm saying with the Paddy thing, it's kind of what we're doing at the moment. We're going off and doing headline gigs, full band, and actually some of the Paddy and Neil gigs, full band. But when we can, we try and, you know, in a theater, in the right venue, it's a really wonderful thing. It's just, you know, it's my future, really.
You know, I'm sure it is because you have such a unique sound. And like I said, I've been a big fan since the Babies, John. I
I'm
really have.
touched. Thank you.
I have all the Babies albums. Um,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it was one of my favorite bands. So can we talk about that for a minute? Because
yeah,
I just read something that the name, the Babies, that started out as a joke. Is that correct?
yeah. We were in London trying to get signed, and we couldn't get signed. Uh, and me and the manager we were in this cellar just below the Thames on Tooley Street, very Dickensian, like all these big warehouses, and
Uh-huh.
London Bridge was at one end and Tower Bridge at the other of the street. And we'd show up and go down to this cellar and rehearse. And there was a pub on the corner with this old Cockney guy with a pint of beer on top of the piano, you know, playing like "My old man said, follow the vein," and it was really Cockney. You know, it's like a Walt Disney version of London. But
Right.
yeah, and we were in this cellar, and me and the manager had an argument. He was saying, you know, why don't you do this? And I'm going like, well, because I just don't do that, you know. And there was some effing and blinding, as we call it, and he stormed
Right.
out. He stormed out of the room. He said, "Oh, fuck it," yeah, and he left. And like he said, "You're all a bunch of babies," and he walked out. And then he walked back in, smiling, and said,
Yeah.
"That's it. That's the name of the band." And yeah, that's how we got our name. And
And that's
I
because the
was,
record labels and the industry was really looking
oh
for
yeah, no, they
younger
weren't.
boy bands, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't listen to the demos unless they thought it was going to be a big money maker. And we were a serious band. So it appealed to the mod sensibility in me to go the other way around. And I've always been a little dyslexic. So when I wrote Babies down on a set list, like the Babies, tonight's set list, I
Right.
would, instead of saying Babies, I spelled it Babys
Right.
because I had dyslexia. So that's the whole story right there.
Wow. But then you guys wound up getting at the time a record deal with Chrysalis, which was like the biggest one at that time.
Yeah, it was, well, it was $1 million deal, but you have to remember that the $1 million was for albums, the budget to make the albums, to fly us around the world, to get gear, to pay roadies. I mean, it looks great on paper.
Right.
I think we got, I got a couple of really great suits and about £1,000, and
And a
that
sandwich.
and a sandwich and all the beer I could drink. Yeah, no, it was great. I remember the manager coming round one night on a Friday, and he gave me something like £200 in cash, and said, "Here, just to be going on with." And I went out the next day and I bought like 12 LPs and a small Fender amp and a crate of Kronenberg beer. And me and my girlfriend were running around this little studio apartment in Belsize Park near the roof, screaming and shouting, think we'd won, the lottery. It was the biggest thing. I mean, to have that much money in those days was insane. It was just
Right.
great.
And then I wanted to bring up, so you wound up embarking on a solo career.
Yeah.
And I read that before Missing You went to #1 on the US charts, you were living in New York and almost broke.
Oh yeah. When I was making the Ignition record,
Mm-hmm.
the first solo record, I had no money. The Babies were always in debt, and when the Babies broke up, I got married. I went back to England, got married. I lived in this tiny cottage in a village,
Mm-hmm.
and I never thought I'd sing again. But I went back to New York, and the record company gave me like $200 a week, and I was living in this crash pad on 72nd Street, and
Mm-hmm.
living off beans and tuna fish. And I
Unbelievable.
met, oh, and I met Ivan Kroll, who was working with Iggy Pop. He was from Czechoslovakia, and he'd been in Patti Smith's band.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great guy. We immediately bonded, and he had a small rehearsal recording studio that off 8th Avenue, and we sort of, became best friends, like two European guys in this big rough city, and we put together an album, and it was a fantastic time. I mean, New York was still really edgy then. You couldn't walk around the East Village by yourself, and you certainly couldn't get lost on 8th Avenue. It was,
Yeah, I'm completely familiar. I'm a New York native,
oh,
and
great.
yeah, and I still lived there back in those days, and I was familiar with the music industry, so I know these places that you're talking about. So where were you, and what do you remember what you were doing when you got the call and found out that Missing You went to #1?
Yeah, I was actually, for some strange, really obscure reason, I was starring in a TV series called Paper Dolls.
Okay.
And in Hollywood, yeah, between touring dates, they flew me back to LA, Hollywood, and I would walk out and read this script and interact with these actors. I was playing myself, John Waite, bon vivant, English rock star kind of thing.
Right.
And I remember being, Nicolette Sheridan was in it, and me and Nicolette were stood by this phone on this sound station. It rang, and somebody shouted, "It's for you," and I picked it up, and somebody said, "You're #1." And I went like, "Oh, that's really great," and put the phone down. and went back to talking to Nicolette. I mean, I really, there's no way you can digest that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I never aimed at being number one. In fact, I would honestly say I'd avoided it, you know, because your life changes then. You're not in as much control as you were. If you were number two, it's better. But number one, you know, I'll take it. I can look back and say I've been number one.
Yes.
Bad English were number one. So I've been
Yes,
number
you were.
one.
And I wanted to bring up Bad English because another one of my favorite bands. I mean, this turned out to be a super group. And for those that are watching and listening that don't know, in Bad English, John Waite, Jonathan Cain from Journey, Ricky Phillips from Styx, Neil Sean from Journey wound up joining you guys. I went back and watched some of the videos last night because I haven't seen them in a long time. And I forgot how amazing that band was.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Yeah, and you had a number one hit with "I Can See You Smile," right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think for about a year we had a blast, and I think after a year we needed a break, and you know, everybody was screaming and shouting, "We need another record for the summer," and we were worn out. You know, I went back to New York. I had a house in Pound Ridge in Westchester County. And I just wanted to sit by the fire, throw logs on the fire and, you know, go for long walks and just get myself back together. I was engaged at the time and I wanted to spend some time at home and everybody wanted to be, but a couple of the Journey guys, you know, they're like machines. They just want to keep going. And yeah, you know, but I mean, the quality of the work is more important to me than just putting stuff out. And I thought we needed to really rethink and come up with something that was, you know, going to be interesting instead of just making the same record again. And I insisted that we take, you know, I said, no, I'm not going to make another record. I need at least 4 months. I got to get back. But the pressure was enormous from the record company and the management. We gave it another shot. But we weren't ready, you know. I mean, half of that second record was really good, and the other half, I don't know what we were thinking.
Right.
You know, yeah.
But you came out with the number one. So I also want to ask you real quick because I thought this was cool. You've gone out with Ringo and his All Stars before.
Yeah.
So how does that happen? Do you just get a call from Ringo's star, and what was that like?
Well, when Ringo called up, I was in the bathtub.
The bathtub.
Yeah, and on the answering machine went off, and it was, "Hey, John, it's Ringo," you know, and I'm like, you know, in the bathtub with a rubber duck or something. I don't know what I was doing, but I mean, it was like, you know, it's like, fucking hell, it's Ringo, you know. So I get out of the bath and I pick the phone up. Oh, I sent him a postcard, you know, just to say how great it was, looking forward to working with him, of this dog with its tongue wrapped around it, just licking its lips, right? And it obviously made him laugh. So he rang me up and we had a nice conversation. It was, you know, it was like when I was about 9 or 10, you know, Ringo was just, you know, he was my hero. I wanted to be a drummer, you know. It was great, you know. I mean, he once introduced me as the man that's done everything, because I played on the roof of buildings in New York City. I'd played in the subway. The Babies were the first band to get signed, making a video. Supergroup Bad English, you know, country albums. I mean, I've done a lot, it's been a very busy life. But that was really something to play with the Beatles. Yeah, it was great.
I bet that is probably one of your fondest memories, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, you know, you turn around on stage. I mean, it was nerve-wracking. It was like, you know, there was other people in the band and we had to play all these different songs. It wasn't just Ringo's songs.
Right.
There was Sheila Ree, you know, I mean, that's like, she would have preferred Bootsy Collins on the bass, you know, and I'm a British bass player.
Yes.
So it was a challenge. If it had been just Ringo's songs, I would have been quite happy just to play bass and not sing, you know, just concentrate on that. But you do the best you can. I hope it worked. you know, really.
I think that it did, John. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I want to remind everyone that the tour starts this Saturday night. You'll be in Fort Lauderdale at the Parker, formerly the Parker Playhouse. The next night, Sunday, you're in Clearwater. And then next week, you are in St. Augustine. So you have several Florida dates coming up to start the tour.
Yeah.
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 And the new album is out, and I wanted to let people know that they can go to your website and find out some more. But before we give that out, I just want to ask you, because we touched on it earlier, about your sketches, and you said that drawing was really one of your first loves. So now
Yeah.
you're doing that again, and you have these selfie sketches that are available on your website?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do like a caricature, like this. This is a poster. This is the album cover. Let's see, got that.
And you drew that?
Yeah, that's the album cover. And if people were standing outside a concert and they couldn't get in, and it was raining and stuff, they were outside the stage door, I would go the extra mile and try and draw this caricature on their albums as a small thank you, you know, something to remember me by.
Right.
And, you know, spend a couple of minutes talking to them. But that was like a small keepsake. And then people were emailing me asking me to make one for their wives or Christmas presents.
Right.
And in the end, I started putting them up on the website, selling like drawings. Like I did a portrait of Patti Smith in pencil, Eric Satie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, and then I moved on to really big canvases that had sort of a political kind of slant. But in the middle of all this, there's the selfies, you know, and if you want one, they're about $200-300. If you want a really big piece, like an art piece of art, they go into the thousands, you know. But there's a lot of work goes into it. But it's what I do, you know. And I mean, it's a nice thing. It's a great thing. I really enjoy doing it, you know, and I do. And I think when I quit singing music or whatever, writing songs,
Right.
I'm gonna go back to painting and just do that. You know, it's really a wonderful thing.
Well, I want to direct everyone to your website, which is johnwaiteworldwide.com. You could order one of John's selfies, and you could look at the artwork and find out more about the album and get that there as well. Once again, you will be in Fort Lauderdale this weekend, Saturday night at the Parker. John, we can't wait to see you, and good luck with the tour. It's so great meeting you.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you.
Stay safe on the road, John.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.